I know you've done quite a few jobs outside the Czech Republic before you got into teaching, but I didn't realize the animal side was there.
Yeah, at college, that's what I studied. Yeah, animals.
No, but
You, all kinds of things, from a practical point of view, and also as a scientific biochemistry, anatomy, and all of these things, pathology, all of these kind of crazy things, and also looking after animals, all kinds of animals, dogs, cats, cows, farm animals, horses.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And now you teach English. Well, that's a paradox.
How about animals nowadays? Yes.
That's it. Yeah. On that brilliant note, I think it's a good starting point into our podcast for today. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our audience. What you were just mentioning, I think is brilliant to start it off because it gives exactly who we're going to be discussing with today and how there's a complete shift as well, because you're also initially from the UK, you've traveled a bit around, you landed in Czech Republic, but not in Prague like everyone else, which is a story of itself. And it's not every day you meet an expat who's British who came to Czech Republic, who now lives somewhere outside of Prague, but usually they go via Prague, via Brno, right, before they end up somewhere. I don't want to say more isolated because I know there's 60,000 people living, was it? 60,000 people living in the area?
Unofficially, I think there's probably a few more.
Well, I think it's a good connection with our title of today, which I will show to our audience. Once forgetting that part, please doing it face to face, but off the grids, on the grind, life beyond the bubble. I will discover a bit more about where exactly he is. I don't want to spoil it yet because we will be discussing in more detail. Let's go further backwards and look at how you even got here in the first place. What brought you to the Czech Republic? What was the trigger? And then discovering a bit more why you stayed here.
Thank you for having me. I guess it all started, well, I guess it's a story of life, if that makes sense. My life is, let's say, like everybody, adapting to the situation and probably necessity, whatever's necessary. So through life, I've always been traveling quite a lot. My mum was kind enough to take me around the world, quite a few places. Basically, in my childhood, I found a love for traveling and experiencing new cultures and these things. When I was about 17, I got the opportunity to go to Russia through some local charity organization in my area of East Anglia. I'm originally from a city called Norwich. And there was an organization helping young people to get out of the bubble and see new places, meet people from other countries. I started cooperating with them. And one day I went to Turkey and I met my future wife there. From that point, we kind of were looking at what our options were, where we'll place our life together. And yeah, in the end, we've decided that the best option would be to move to the EU. I've always felt more home outside of the UK. Ironically, I'm probably one of these stereotypical Brits you'll ever meet. I drink coffee, not tea. I don't make chips. I'm not a fan of no football, no alcohol, pretty much. Yeah, so yeah, wow, probably really least typical Brit you'll ever meet. And then we chose Czech Republic. We were exploring our options. Where could we go? Where could we start our new life together? And in the end, it was Czech Republic. The main reason was that my sister and her husband had already moved to Czech Republic maybe in 2007 or 2008. They decided to buy during the economic crisis and started to renovate it. She came back because she was pregnant. And then I left about 2-3 months after she came back. Because of that connection to Czech Republic, she'd lived here for maybe 4 years. If you're going to throw a dart at the map, it probably should be somewhere where there's some kind of connection or help if things don't go to plan.
I like that. What happened to the house that your sister had? Is it still there? Is it sold?
Yeah, it's still standing. It's actually my house now.
Oh, okay. So you bought in the end? You bought the house then in the end?
Yeah, I bought the house in the end.
Nice. Got you stay in the family.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's huge. It's really big house. And I think her plan was to make it into some kind of accommodation or something like that. And I think that's probably what we will do also in the future. Something either for tourism, It's between Český Raj, the Czech paradise,
Yep. Yeah.
Krk, the giant
Mhm.
mountains, and the Jízerské hory,
Good
So
function.
it's really in the middle of it, and everything's quite accessible within 30 minutes, let's say, by car. So yeah, I like it. I like it. It's quiet, and yeah, that will be our future living here once it's finished.
So I feel you kind of already answered the question of if you want to stay here on the long term. But what would you say was that trigger? Because, okay, you arrive here, you want to stay in the European Union, your family's already got something here. I can see the foundation is already kind of there, but was there anything else that kind of was that trigger point where you said, you know what, this is home?
Like maybe too literal or too practical to say like home, because I've traveled so much. Maybe you've heard the expression, home is where the heart is. So,
Yeah.
So wherever I am is home, if that makes sense. But really here is a place where we've set up our life. It's where we have friends, colleagues, work, business. It doesn't really make sense to uproot everything and try to move that somewhere else, because it probably wouldn't work, So yeah, I didn't plan to stay here, the original plan to stay here for a couple of years, teach, just to earn some money to keep the cash flow, pay for our basic needs and whatever else. And after a couple of years, I found out that I really enjoyed teaching.
Your wife was the one who brought you into teaching in the first place, didn't she?
Yeah. So yeah, to backtrack a little bit, when we were trying to find where to move and what to do, because of course I couldn't just live somewhere for a couple of years without any money. She was already teaching in her home country. And she said, "You're a British guy. There's a big demand for Brits abroad. Why aren't you exploring the options of teaching?" So I said, "I don't know if I can teach." But then, yeah, I started exploring it. It was quite difficult, It was 2013. I've been here almost 12 years. In 5 days, it will be my 12-year anniversary. So, and I was 21 when I moved here. So life was just kind of starting out. It wasn't easy to find a job. There was not a lot of information back then.
What were some of the jobs you had applied for? Because I know Czech Republic was the teaching, but outside of the Czech Republic, what was kind of the areas you worked in? To give a bit of a direction, what kind of work areas you have experience in.
I spent some time working in the car industry in the UK. Normal cars, commercial vehicles, agricultural vehicles. I was driving around and fixing these on the road. Then I spent some time in a computer company, building computers, server management, general repairs, installation. I studied before that. I came here when I was 21. So I had probably 2-3 jobs before that. Finished my education after studying animal management. It was a broad spectrum course for everything, and then you can, let's say, choose which direction you want to specialize in. I guess I'm a little bit too empathic for working with animals, or the opportunities which were there, and I couldn't imagine working around suffering animals, It was too much of a heavy emotional load, I couldn't imagine doing that in my life. So yeah, other options. And yeah, I suppose that was the opportunity to try something completely new. It's the main reason why
I was just thinking that kind of ironic how the automotive aspect that you've already touched upon in the past, work-wise, and now you land in a place which has a huge automotive there, Skoda, but you didn't even know that. It's ironic in itself. But sorry, yeah, go ahead.
It's all coincidence, and a lot of people say, okay, I admire what you've done. It's amazing what you've achieved or how you've created the life that you wanted. I never really thought about it until they started mentioning it. It's kind of like that necessity. I wanted to be with my wife. So moving to Czech Republic was the option or the way to do it. So found the job, finally searching for jobs between, can I say the area?
Yeah, different with
In Prague and Liberec, because I'm on this D10 road. So that's where I frequent. I found a job there and they said, okay, we'll set you up with a place to live. We'll start your teaching. And yeah, when are you coming? So I jumped on the plane and as you said, I didn't know anything about Czech Republic except for the capital is Prague.
Mhm.
You know, I didn't know the Czech people like beer. Didn't know that. I arrived here in the city and I see these Skoda logos everywhere.
Yeah.
What's going on? What you guys like company, I think, right? It must be really popular here. They said, no, the headquarters is here. Everything comes from this company. Now it
They're
makes
quite proud of it. The question appeared, but you already kind of answered the majority of it. The most important piece being, at the end, you were still foreigner who didn't speak Czech, coming to the Czech Republic. Did your work being in teaching English specifically, which, we'll go in details actually right after this, but did it help you in its own rights when it came to adapting or adjusting yourself to the local work culture?
You mean the teaching English aspect?
Yeah, the job hunting, the teaching English, the first jobs you started doing here in the Czech Republic.
I started teaching immediately. It was good that I was in that expat network or environment. When I started working there were other foreigners working for the same school. They specialized in teaching English. So all of the teachers spoke English. I could ask them, where's a good place to get this? What's life like here? I like having quite in-depth conversations about the whole aspects of everything. Yes, it gave me quite a good idea of what life is like here. But when I ventured out on my own, it was quite seldom that people spoke English in public. If I needed help, if somebody asked me something on the street for the first year, I had to call somebody up and say, hey, what's this guy saying to me? Or I don't know if you speak Czech. Do you speak Czech a bit?
No, I've got the real basics. I also use my own translator.
I think everybody, when you're learning a language, you go through that phase where you just say yes to everything. If you don't understand, you say
yes. Yeah. Right. Sure.
oh, so that took some time, and then you pick up more words. One of the best things helped me quite a lot was going shopping in Kaufland.
Yeah. House.
Just for food, food is one of the most important things. Kaufland in my city, I don't know if it's the same in other places. I've only lived here and where my sister has the house. Kaufland is the only shop where you have to weigh your own vegetables and put the...
Yeah, that's true. It is the case in Prague as well. Yeah.
And then you have to put the label on it and then you take it to the checkout.
So you need to know. Yeah,
Exactly.
I see what you're talking about.
Cucumbers, what are cucumbers? Is it this one? No. And you pick up a lot of things just from this. You learn a few basic phrases, some universal phrases like can I or can you. It kind of builds from there. I have to say that also being an English teacher, I understand the English language quite well. I'm quite analytically minded, so I can dissect the language, see how this affects this. It's almost like mathematics or physics at the same time. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
With Czech.
Well, to connect it, I like that. You're right into the topic. We did have a question in regards to what led you to teaching or to going towards giving education surrounding English. We've already covered that quite well in detail. So I think it's important. You came here, you were working for an organization to teach English, right? It wasn't your own business. When did you start your own business and why did you decide to start your own business? And what is your business about? Let's have a quick rundown of that.
Well, my company is called East Anglian Languages. I'm from East Anglia, so it's kind of like a historical kingdom. It's not really a political region, if that makes sense. It's something I usually with like Bohemia and Moravia here, historical kingdoms, but doesn't have really any political or governmental meaning. You have the specific individual regions and they have their own government. I started working with a few agencies, and when you're a self-employed person, you're doing a lot of the brunt of the work anyway. The paperwork, the administration, and this side of things, plus of course the teaching. And found out that I was my own walking advertisement. When I go to a place and I say, hey, I'm English. Do you speak English? Can you help me, please? It kind of reminded people of the importance of learning the international language.
Yeah.
I'm quite a social person. I make friends quite easily. I think I have my morals and priorities straight about reliability, coming through on your promises, respect. So with all of those in context, it kind of snowballs. You get somebody who says, okay, can you help my friend with English? He
Yeah.
looks abroad, and it really just snowballs. But it's, like I said, consistency, keeping those principles alive, not letting people down, doing what you promise, trying your best. Of course, you can't always do your best, but I think when we spoke previously, I do hold myself to strict standards. I was working for other people. I didn't really like the way of working under the other agencies. I can't say that communication was clear or fair, or it was sometimes mixed. You have to read between the lines. Why is this person behaving in a strange way to me? Quite toxic working environments. And I said, I'm building my own personal brand. The offers are coming. I do well in one place. They say, okay, we like what you're doing with these clients or with me, if it's the boss. And then can you take over and teach all of my employees? It just builds from there. So I've been fully independent since 2018, the end of 2018, just before COVID.
And what's the situation when it comes to competition in your area? Or is your business one of the rare with a real pure English person behind it? Or is there other foreigners who have business in the area?
I think I'm the only British or the British owned school within maybe 50 kilometers. I know in some of the other cities there are a few, but definitely here. Working in this industry and maybe also not getting a lot of assistance and training from the others. Like I said, those high standards that I want, not better than other people, but I know I can do better. So I was always pushing myself. I'm not happy with how I did that. I can read the room. Okay, they didn't really get what I was talking about. I'm going to have to adjust that and find a better way to do that. You kind of hone your craft after a few years, I guess, like I said, also being analytically minded. Okay, this is a weak spot in this lesson or in this methodology. How can I improve it? It's that consistency which snowballs into expertise, philosophy, methodology, understanding of languages, teaching and education, and how people learn. Again, reading the room. Okay, this is good for this person. This person wants to do this, so we're not going to do this or this. Flexibility, adaptability.
Personalization, the ultimate.
Listening to your clients. That's one thing that feedback, it's a little bit of a strange thing because I don't think Czechs, well, where I work, it's not a big, if there's a problem, we'll give you feedback about it. But if there's no feedback, things okay. If it's working well, we're not solving any issues. If it's not working, they come to you and we have to solve something, but it's just business. It's not personal. You don't take it personally. I think my clients know that I want to do the best for them. It's not about money. Of course, we live in capitalism, but I have to eat. I have a limited number of hours to work in the week. So I also have to set some pricing. I like helping people. As I said before, I am happy to come to a lesson and not be paid for it. If we lived in some utopia where money doesn't exist, I would still do this.
You like what you learn,
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I decided to stay. I can't imagine doing something different than what I'm doing. This is kind of like on a philosophical note, kind of found my purpose, or I feel like I found my purpose,
Do you think it's related to family as well? Because your family, you were mentioning 6th generation, I believe, in our previous conversation. Was entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's something I kind of thought about maybe only in the last few months. In my home region, the name Aldis, my surname is Aldis, Aldis. In my hometown, I wouldn't say it's a famous name, but some people know it. If I say, okay, my name's Will Aldis, all people know it from businesses who are running in our region of East Anglia for now more than 130 years. More than 130 years. I think it was 1892. My great grandfather, William, established a furniture shop. He built a name for us. A lot of the people in our family work in this business, own this business. It's ironic that every first boy, doesn't matter if there's a girl before it, it's always William. From this guy, I don't know what, let's say before him, maybe there's another guy, or maybe not. I'm not sure. But I'm now the 6th William, let's say. My son, I have a son, he's 9 years old almost. He's also William Aldis, so he's the 7th. My side of the family finished with my mother and my uncle. They sold their part of the business back to their uncle, my great uncle. They started their own ventures. And it's ironic that they've also been very successful in what they've done. My mother moved to property management. My uncle moved to marine services because East Anglia is on the North Sea coast. So there's a lot of wind farms, gas rigs, yes, drilling gas, fishing. So he built a huge, I don't know exactly, but I would guess as a multi-million-pound business around this, which he then sold, I believe. My brother, younger brother, started something similar, boat hire. Yeah, he's 2 years younger than me, also successful. And yeah, I don't know if it's genetic, since what I told you, or I would actually probably hazard to guess that it's probably those standards that people set for you, if you know what I mean, in your home environment. Or maybe with my experiences with working for other people. This isn't how I imagine me being represented. I don't like the tag which has been assigned to this company. I don't like hearing the negative feedback about the management from this company when I'm working for them and I'm representing them. They say, okay, we're happy with you. We're really glad to have you on this course, but the communication from these other people or the quality of the lessons, we don't like it. They don't know what they're talking about. They can't explain it to me properly. I don't want them to tarnish my name, to be honest. My reputation is also important to me.
We're the face of business at the end of the day. They're the one that they see.
I wasn't satisfied with how things were working, but it's like disciplining somebody else's kids. It's not mine. I don't have the right to touch or shout or scream at somebody else's kids. It's their child, if that makes sense. My business is my child. It's up to me to handle I wouldn't say even the negative feedback. It's not criticism. You can't take it as criticism because it isn't, and if you listen to it and you react to it in the right way, then it will push your business further. And I think that's what a lot of the managers couldn't accept, especially small business, medium-sized businesses. And in the corporate world, you'll have managers who are in the same position. They see that the negative feedback is criticism. It's a personal attack. And then they go involved and inflamed. And then you have outbursts, arguments, fallouts. Their business suffers. You lose clients. And then it's the beginning of the end. It's that principle that if you make your bed, you have to sleep in it.
Yeah.
And it's whether you like it or not. If you can't leave that ego at home or shut it down, it doesn't matter what you think because your customers are telling you what they like, what they don't like, and they will stop paying you or stop using your services if you don't listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
So I have to say that my competitors aren't good at that. So I've got a young lady starting in September. Her mother called me and said that one of my competitors wasn't willing to listen to the fact that they wanted a native speaker. And even if it's right or wrong, you have to make the clients happy. They stop paying you. They say, futile. I'm wasting my breath by saying, okay, this woman who is not a native speaker is okay. She's fine. But my daughter had the best results with a native speaker. Please, can you arrange it?
No, it's criteria that you can't just be skipping because, of course, any business, there's got to be a balance because there's going to be some requests that are a bit far-fetched from clients. Let's be honest, it's not always perfect, but I do agree there's some key areas in your case, as you're mentioning, if there's already a proven fact that that person was educated with a native speaker, the outcome was positive, it doesn't make any sense to try a different angle. I can completely understand that.
There is that aspect. You have to make decisions with your own personal expertise as well. When I see this woman or I speak to this young girl, it might that this girl is completely unsuitable for having a native speaker who doesn't speak Czech. I do speak Czech, that could be a compromise. But if I put a native speaker who doesn't speak any Czech and can't help explain the differences between the languages, she will also have the same feedback. I learned this from the automotive industry, from the design. The reason that people buy cars, it's mostly about the design, Design is about how you feel. A good car designer should make you feel a specific way when you jump into that car. If you jump into a BMW, you should feel the masculinity, the sportiness, the feeling of luxury. The same with the Mercedes, elegance, class, long history, smooth ambient lighting. That's the same principle in business. People will continue with you based on how you make them feel. To feel safe with this person. Do I trust this person? The more he says, let's do it this way. I know you want to do it that way, but from my experience, this will be the better way, that they listen to you, and they feel that, okay, this person is taking charge, and this is a professional. This is somebody who understands what they're talking about. Not they just didn't like the idea of what they said, or they're masking something, if that makes sense. Maybe this comment was because they don't have a native speaker, not because they didn't want to give them, but they don't have it. They can't supply that, but they don't want to admit that. So again, the aspect of honesty and trust, openness, and willing to give people those experiences that they want, and to get fundamentally that feeling that they want from whatever they're doing, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That I feel like I'm improving, I feel like this person is doing their maximum to help me with my language learning journey. I feel like for me, it's not a little amount of money that I'm paying him, but I see the results, if that makes sense. I feel more confident when I speak English. I don't care that I make mistakes, but I feel good speaking English, with my colleagues, with my partners. Yes. I'm not scared, that you can help relieve that anxiety or fear, that the person has,
Which is often the one reason why we have a hard time learning. Once you manage to pass that barrier, just accept the fact that you're going to make mistakes. It makes it already 10 times easier to learn the language.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason that I learned Czech was just curiosity, how do you say this? How do you say that? So I've learned, let's say, Czech to probably about, I guess, B1. Yes, level plus minus, only by asking, what does it mean? What's this? How do you say this? Why did this person react like that when I said this, or what's the better way? And yeah, it's only by ear. I had a few lessons last year, but it just showed me that the Czech language is a little bit disorganized at times.
Yeah, I think I'm on that stage now with the lesson teacher. Okay, bringing it back. So I think we've covered a lot in regards to why you have a good understanding when it comes to creating your own business and certain fundamentals to have in mind when it comes specific to your industry, but creating your own business, the client's feedback and so on, digging deeper into that. There's one thing I wanted to ask you to add, because I think it's important for any foreigners or even locals. I think it's more relevant for a foreigner who wants to move here, wants to open a business in the Czech Republic. Having your business is one thing, and running a business, I think you've covered that quite well. But is there any tips, advice you could give to anyone who wants to start his own business in the Czech Republic? Or things to be prepared for?
How do you mean it? Do you mean somebody who's really decided that Czech Republic is the place that I want to do business and really is just relocating here to open their business, or somebody who's already living here?
Okay, with someone who's already living here.
I think when we discussed it previously, I said running a business is very similar in almost any country that you live in. You'll have to do the taxes. You will have to do some form of bureaucracy. You will have to find out the correct procedure for doing X, Y, Z. My experience was that it's really important to have good quality sources of information. To be honest, it wasn't on the internet. It wasn't public sourced information. It was always through connections, acquaintances, clients, people who I'm already in contact with, friends.
Network
Yeah.
is one key.
I don't like to say network because I like the idea theoretically of networking events, but if I'm honest, I have a feeling it's a lot of small business owners looking for clients between other small business owners.
Never looked at it that way, but you have a good angle. I've been to a few, I see what you're on about.
And they're all handing out business cards. They're all saying, I provide these services,
Mhm.
but these aren't your real target clients. They want corporate clients. They want people from the public. If I'm meeting somebody who does redecorating services, okay, at some point in my life, I probably will need to redecorate some, but it's not my bread and butter, or I can't provide that, let's say, stable income to someone. So I would say it's not networking. It's people you know. It's people you trust, people who you build relationships with. And I'm lucky that I meet them mostly through work, just outside of that client circle, you know. We bumped into each other in the supermarket or at the swimming pool, and they said, come and have a cup of coffee at our place on Saturday. I like to say yes to all new experiences and opportunities. I meet the husband, and the husband does X, Y, Z, and he knows X, Y, Z.
Like it.
It's natural. With networking events, it's really artificial, my feeling. You know, it's not, it's business. It's pure business. I'm here to sell my services, products, whatever. Do you want to buy it? Yes. I'll buy yours if you buy mine. There's nothing personal about it. Nobody says that, Luke, you are a good guy. If you need some help, you want to do X, Y, Z. I know how to do X, Y, Z. If you need some advice, ask me, because I've done it. I know how it works. Yeah. And it's that same principle. If you want to ask somebody, how do I do my taxes correctly? You ask somebody who's an accountant or has an accounting company, or in my case, my client's mother, who is my accountant. So I know her through him. I trust him. We have a good relationship. We're friends with the family. And this led to this thing, if that makes sense. It's that accumulation of everything. It's accumulation of trust, respect, reliability, fulfilling your promises. So, yeah.
And if I can add on that, because I feel it was also the direction of the question, do you feel it's easy to start a business in Czech Republic from an admin point of view?
Depends who you know.
It comes down to that.
You need to have trusted sources of information still. Point of view, I have clients who are lawyers, who are notaries. It's their job. I go and see them on a Tuesday afternoon, and I say at the end of the lesson, what do I need to do when I need to establish a limited company here in Czech Republic? You know, or I want to do this. How do I do that? What's the necessary protocol? And they say, okay, I'll prepare it for next week, or send me the details and I'll prepare a draft contract, whatever it is. It's quite a small town where we live compared to Prague.
I feel it actually helps a lot as well. It sounds like it.
But again, it depends on your setup. It's because I'm very, I don't want to say self-conscious, but self-aware.
Mhm.
You know, I'm critical of myself. My reputation is very important. I hear the feedback from other clients about other service providers, and I analyze those things and I implement them into my own behaviors, ways of working, you know, to prevent those kind of situations or feedback. You know, I already spoke about feeling safe with a person. I know that there are people in my profession who should not be around these male teachers who are misusing that trust or space in the lessons to make people feel uncomfortable. Some people drink too much. Czech Republic has very cheap alcohol. If you want to become a budget alcoholic, this is a great place to do it. I don't drink. I don't make women feel uncomfortable. I'm very distant with the touches because I'm aware of the consequences of how you can make other people feel. It's all about those feelings. How do people feel with you? If people don't feel safe, or that, okay, that Will is a trustworthy guy, or that, okay, he will pay his invoice on time, you know, or, okay, he's okay in the lessons, but I heard about him asleep, covered in his own vomit on the street last week. If you can't self-reflect, then they will self-sabotage themselves without fully understanding what they've done, if you understand.
Yeah, I see a connection.
Yeah.
Where does... Sorry, go ahead.
A lot of people are kicking themselves, screaming at the sky, why is my life like how it is? But they're not asking what was my responsibility or my part in this. If I act irresponsibly, irrationally, or in a way that's unpleasant for other people, I shouldn't be surprised when people don't want to cooperate with me. I guess I learned this when I was about 19. I spent 3 months in Madagascar. I was working there with some animals, some other project type thing. Before this time was about to run out, they were looking for replacement, let's say, leaders or something in this group. You know, I paid to go there for 3 months, and they said, after this, there is an opportunity to stay for another 3 months for free. If you just show the next group where to go, how we do the things that we do. During this conversation, somebody said, well, you've only been talking about going back to school and studying music. Actually, the second time I wanted to study music. I can't wait to go there and learn how to make music and how to understand music better. In this moment, I realized that I shut the door to this opportunity unintentionally without even realizing what I'd done. So that's a lesson across the board. Your actions, your words might be closing doors that you didn't know were open.
On the other hand, we're humans. We can't be perfect. I don't think we're trying here to say that you're always going to be on pinpoint.
But understand the power of words and what they can do, even when you don't mean it in the way that you are saying, if you understand what
I see what you mean.
It's also reading between the lines. I never said that I wouldn't stay here, for another once. But I didn't say that I'd be interested at the same time, by emphasizing how excited I was about going back to school. Even what you don't say or what you say says things which you're not saying at the same time. Yeah. So that's my business. My business is languages, understanding how languages work and the message. I'm also very interested in psychology, sociology, philosophy, mentalism, and these things. Your body language says a lot. Yeah, I'm very aware of that.
I agree. I love that. So where can we find Will? Because we've been giving little hints there and there. So Will is not in Prague, which is why we're having an online podcast. Make sure to comment if you guys are okay with this format. Try new things. How is life outside of Prague? Yes, it's the key question here. We're living in Boleslav. What's the reality behind that?
I would say it's completely different to any other place in Czech Republic. Mladá is like really, I don't want to say an anomaly, but it's really something specific. If you've ever driven on the D10 to the north, you might have seen something from the motorway. Basically, half of the city is a factory. The other half is the place for people to sleep between the shift. It's working on I think they call it 18 shift system. So there's 18 7.5-hour shifts per week. Yeah. So that means every 8 hours, because they also have to have lunch. It's basically a rush hour, between 5 and 7, people going to work and leaving work. Then there's the school time till about 8. There's 1 till 3. And then there's also a small one in the evening. I would say that it's really a quite strangely set out city. I guess that's also what I miss here, is that kind of feeling of history. It's really a bizarre place because it's built like most cities on the banks of the river.
Yeah.
There's a big cliff, The old town is on the top of the cliff, and then it basically grows backwards. The center is more or less old town, which isn't really anything special. It has some magic, but not a lot. It's got that historical feel, but it's not really a square. There's a main road that goes through it. So there's constantly traffic going through, and it goes all the way down past the factory to the next previously town. Yes, now it's part of it. Yeah. And this road could be 3-4 kilometers. There is some culture, but it's uncomparable with Prague, incomparable with other cities. The main thing here is work. It's built around a few years ago. It's kind of like a technical magnet for technicians, managers, which are mostly my clientele, let's say, the white collar workers, also a magnet for unskilled workers, so there are a lot of people from around the world. They're usually unskilled workers who are here, so we do also have kind of like a international feeling in the city, but not in the same way like Prague. These people are not really bringing their culture with them. Yes, it's usually we're just here for work, maybe something to eat in the evenings, a few beers in the 24-hour pubs, and then back home, catch a few Z's, and then back to the shift.
How is it as someone who was not native Czech? I remember reading you heard most that laughed at your face when you said something in English. What's up?
Because I said, there's a lot of blue collar workers here. You can meet, I'm not saying it's exclusive for everybody, but there is some stereotype here. People from Boleslav will also say that there is some stereotype of people here. The Skoda employee has its own stereotype here, and also in Czech Republic, if you go to the cities, they will say, makes sense, you work for Skoda. Yep. And I worked for Skoda also in the past, and it's a big, there's 30,000 employees internationally, 35,000 or something like this, so it's not across the board. It's not a diagnosis, if that makes sense, but there are some stereotypes which come with those people. And yeah, you can meet a lot of quite ignorant people in services. I don't know how it is in Prague, but for me, Czech Republic is really lacking with customer service, especially in other places outside of Prague where there's not the international aspect. In the places where you would expect a little empathy or somebody to try to make your experience more pleasant. Restaurants, a lot of people are almost disgusted, that you are ordering food, but it has improved astronomically since I first came here, but there was a lot of unpleasantness, or were just unwilling to help you, lazy, rude. Yes. As an English person where the customer is always right, when you go to a restaurant and you are almost should be treated from my point of view, like a king, or to be served by servers. Yes, the word was missing, and there are specific places, the other one is healthcare. I'm not saying that the healthcare is bad, but you can have very unpleasant, even traumatic experiences sometimes. I know some people who are afraid to go to the doctors and the hospitals because of that unwillingness to help, the lack of empathy, almost like disregard, foreigner, doesn't speak Czech so well. The person that you're referencing was in our local hospital. I went to one restaurant, woke up the next day, terrible pain in my ear. I went to the ear, nose, and throat department, and I already spoke, so I think I was just being a little bit lazy, maybe just because of the pain. And I asked one of the nurses in Czech, and she, which means, absolutely not. I don't speak any English. And then she went to the day room or wherever the other nurse. Yeah. And then I heard her repeat what I said to her and laughed at the top of her lungs.
I'm sorry for you.
It's life. Yeah.
So that's the limit.
It's not an exception.
You're not the first one I hear going through such a thing.
And I feel that's probably one of the things for anybody who's moving to Czech Republic. Get ready for that. Get ready for very affordable and available healthcare. You need to see a specialist. Good luck. In the UK, you could be waiting 6 months, 1 year for an appointment. And in Czech Republic, you can see somebody the same day in many cases. If you do these walk-in clinics, you will sit there for 2-3 hours, but you could be seen the same day. And the toothache, go sit there, yes. Karlovo náměstí, yes, yeah. And you will be seen, and they will do whatever they need to do, but don't expect service with a smile.
It's quality of the product is there, but it is served in a way that is a bit offset.
It's the stereotype of medicine, isn't it? It doesn't taste.
Yeah.
It's always got a bad taste. Yeah, you're not supposed to enjoy medicine. Yeah,
It's a fair point. It's actually a good way of looking at it.
But I've had confrontations with them. I had a very bad cough. I was worried, but I had pneumonia. I was coughing up a little bit of blood from coughing so much in reality. And there was another woman there, and she was, "Why aren't you wearing a mask if you might have pneumonia?" I said, "Seriously? I've just come here because I'm worried about my health. You're shouting at me. I would expect a little bit of empathy here. I don't work here. I don't know how you do your job. If I need to wear a mask, please give me one. I'll wear it. It's no problem. But I don't expect this kind of behavior in a hospital." And she kind of, "Okay, here's the mask." And then she even apologized after it.
You were being respectful to me, right? You were being respectful and quite honest as well.
Yeah.
It's just stating facts. Yeah, there was nothing wrong with what you stated.
Exactly. So, to be honest, I think you do have to confront these little situations, and it does smooth it out a little bit, because that's one of the things that helps enforce our cultural standards, etiquette, or ways of social interaction. You have to pick people up on it. Please don't talk to me like that. I know there's a problem. Let's solve the problem, but let's not get personal. Like I said, This is your profession. I don't know how your profession works. You don't know how my profession works. Can you teach me English? Can you analyze a language? Do you understand how all of the words work together? No. Do you understand how people learn things? No. So don't tell me how I should do my job. Please do your job and help me have a better experience and everybody else who is here by telling us the correct way to do things in a way that is acceptable from all sides. Because again, I don't want to be in hospital in this case. I think you have to address it.
Before we jump to the next one, because we do have quite a few other areas that we want to be discussing and trying to keep it within a time frame, I will highlight a bracket here to our listeners if there's anyone who is listening from the medical field. We're not saying at all that the quality of the product in its own way, the hospital, what is covered, how doctors take it, it's brilliant. I'm actually really, really surprised when I moved here by how good it is here in the Czech Republic, just to make sure that people understood that. We're just saying that sometimes the customer service aspect specifically can be tricky. I personally have been lucky, but yes, definitely.
It's just very hit and miss. Once you go, it's amazing. We were in hospital last month with my son. Fantastic nurses, fantastic doctors. All of the nurses, to be fair, were polite, helpful. If we needed something, they were there. But then you have a few ignorant individuals. Nothing.
But that person doesn't represent the overall picture. It's unfortunate because it's the one you're going to remember the most. It is true. One last quick question in regards to your location. And then if I can ask just a quick response in regards to that, we'll dig further into the more self-critique and ambitious side of you, which I think is interesting as well. Would you say that living in Mladá Boleslav gives you a better understanding of what it is to be being Czech than living in Prague?
I would say so. When I came here, I was given the opportunity to meet up with another group of foreigners who were working here and working for Skoda. I was a little bit hesitant because I've traveled quite a lot when I just left the UK, and I wanted to have the most authentic experience of Czech Republic and what it means to be Czech. I'm not as sheltered as I would be if there would always be the opportunity to speak English with people. There's the international community, the tourism. So it's kind of a country in a country, yes, if that makes sense, So I definitely feel that I get more of an idea of what it is to be Czech, what Czech culture is. Of course, it's a little bit, how to say it, maybe influenced by local situation. If I'm honest about it, I think you would have that everywhere. Every city where you live or every location where you live, you will have a little bit of a, let's say, experience, because, okay, everybody here works in automotive, but if I go to another place, everybody works in agriculture. If I go to South Moravia, everybody works in farming and winemaking. It's probably just a smaller variation of what it means to be Czech. Czech Republic is, but I think it's definitely more unadulterated than Prague.
I like that, unadulterated Prague. Let's get into the next category, always forward with the question being, you shared that when we were discussing your business in the Czech Republic, work experience as well. There's definitely something that keeps popping is that you're not someone who necessarily celebrate the I did good moments easily. And the question was brought because it highlights the mindset that you bring to your business. So I guess the question being, why do you think that is?
I think it's probably, like I said, when I see the word ambition, I wouldn't say stereotypically ambitious. That makes sense. I've already said today that I don't work for money. It's a little bit like Greek mythology, for your legacy, for your name in the history books, like Achilles. Yeah, like I said, I really don't like to sound big-headed or arrogant. I'm aware of that, and I really hate blowing my own trumpet. That's probably why I don't celebrate my successes. Each success is just a stepping stone. Or I achieve something, okay, but then it means, okay, I need to react to the other things. That's business in a nutshell. You have some goal, you take some action, and then there's a reaction, and you have to react to that reaction. It just pushes things forward a little bit. So those little moments of success are quite small. But then again, when you look at it from that legacy point of view, it's the bigger picture. What have I created. Of course, there's the aspect of how I see my business and how other people see my business. For me, it's that, okay, I wake up, I go to work, I do the things which are necessary for my business. I try to do something a little bit differently. I try to push it this way. Okay, this isn't working. Okay, what can I do to do it in a different way to achieve those results? And yeah, it's not ambition. I don't want to say legacy because that sounds really cringy, but it's my reputation. I would say my business is an extension of me, if that makes sense, which of course isn't good for work-life balance, but this is what I've done sort of everything which I've done. And again, those standards, that I'm quite self-critical. My definition of good could be for some people amazing. In reality, what I've learned, I don't like to say that I'm demanding. I don't like to say that I'm ambitious, but I do have, unfortunately, very, very high standards, which could be from my home life, could be from my life experiences. If I go to a restaurant, I expect to have an experience there. So I don't expect just to not die from starvation. For me, that food has to be amazing. And the same should be in my work. I'm not happy unless my clients have an amazing experience.
With that level of mindset, or I'm not sure if it's a drive, but with that level of self-critique, whether the word, you have specific foundation that define who you are and how you want your business to be and what you expect of yourself is very specific. But without many criteria, if I can highlight, I know my choice of words on the best here. I think I have a person who actually speaks better English than I do. Well, how do you avoid burning out? Because the fact is, you're still human at the end of the day.
Of course. I don't think you can. I don't think you can avoid burning out. I guess maybe I said a few things personally to you that I probably experienced something like this. I don't know how much of that was circumstantial. This was during COVID. I had some of my habits, activities, hobbies in place prior to this, and everything was managing itself. You take that time for yourself to let off some steam and prepare yourself for the next week. Everybody knows during the pandemic, everybody was restricted. Everybody still has to try to survive, adapt to the situation, jump online, find small new innovations of how to work in this setup. I was going to the gym 3 times per week, not possible. Yeah. Fishing wasn't really priority, is the world going to end or what's happening during the first 3 months? And yeah, and then it just becomes that cycle of waking up, logging on, having your meetings, your lessons, then logging off, and then starting again, So
You're missing the drive.
but I mean, I'm not going to go into the what ifs, or it shouldn't have, or what if it only, this is what happened, I was kind of powerless in this situation. And yeah, I mean,
I just think it's still interesting because in its own right, the pandemic, but if you take someone who went through the pandemic and we're in here, start a job, starts his own business. Okay, cool. That's for him to a degree. The first big wall he's going to face in life. The reason why I'm so curious about the burnout aspect is you've traveled around the world. So having to readapt yourself to a new environment every single time, which for a lot of people is a stress point. It's something that I want to say you're not stressed about, right? Because I'm sure you still have from time to time, but you've also seen in your life, changing job, different companies, different work, starting your own business, relationship with someone outside of Europe. And so I'm just saying that it's amazing because you've discovered and faced so many different experiences that we would think when the pandemic came around, you would have maybe managed it better when it comes to burnout. It's kind of interesting because we get to see the double angle.
There were some things at the beginning, but it was probably an accumulation of things, It's a long-term thing about burnout that it doesn't happen from one day to the next. So it was probably after about 1 year of this setup, and just work, relaxing or trying to wait until there is better news, let's say, from the world and what's happening, a lot of frustration from my dreams or wishes being postponed until a later date, which could be whenever. You don't know when this is going to finish. You don't know Is everything going to collapse? There's so many questions, so many doubts. I think I said this also to you previously. It's a little bit like the Phoenix. I think Jordan Peterson said, you need to go to this level of burnout. And I kind of understand him a little bit because you're pushing your limits. That's also one of my questions my whole life. How far can I go? I want to take this to the maximum. What is my maximum? Where are my borders?
Yeah.
And you know, by getting to that potential burnout place, okay, these are my kind of limits. This is where, okay, there's not one specific limit, but this is a type of limit in the full spectrum of my life. In this place, I'm on or over the maximum, and I need to rein it in a little bit. And so reevaluate the situation, reevaluate my lifestyle, reevaluate my life, find what's important again and focus on that. And I've said also, I do my job because I help. Maybe I should rein that in a little bit as well and start helping myself more than giving, yes, and save a little bit for myself, But again, I think the Phoenix for me is the best metaphor. You recognize it yourself, even globally, we've evolved in this time. Everything is different than it was before. I just transitioned with it at the same time into the next phase. And I think everybody will have a little bit of that, Nobody will be exactly the same as they were pre-COVID, pre-Ukraine. If you like it or don't like it, it's just what it is,
Agreed. But there are some foundations we need to get back to, which help as well when it comes to burnout and so on. Working in the HR, I've got the data on that, but I always say that one of the reasons I think I personally managed a lot when it came to the pandemic was knowing that the people I had that mattered to me were still around, and including the ones I was living with, that we could help each other out. When you come back into a pyramid of basic needs that we have. Do I have a roof over my head? Yes. Is my family and the people matter the most to me alive? Yes. Do I have enough to feed myself? It's going to cover my ass from burning out at least for a few months. It's one aspect, and I think it's a good way to connect it, to finish it off with today's podcast. So let's finish off with life between cultures, family, identity, and home, with a nice positive note, because your wife is not from Czech Republic, as we've mentioned before. But how has having a wife from Georgia shaped your daily life and identity here? And I'll connect it to the second question, so we have it into one. From that shaping of your daily life identity here, would you now say that there's a part of you that knows this is a long-term journey? Because you definitely answered the fact that this is home to a degree, even though we've defined that home isn't necessarily a physical thing. But if you see yourself staying here in the long run with all this taken into account.
Yeah, well, we have a hybrid home life. I'm not the most typical Brit. Our home language is a combination of English, Czech, Georgian. Our family holidays, and I mean not traveling, but, Christmas, Easter. It's also a combination, of aspects of Georgian Christmas, English Christmas, also a little bit Czech. And we have it on the Czech day, because we have to follow the Czech calendar, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Yeah. I think a lot of international families will know what I'm talking about.
The create your own, you don't follow the standards approach.
Well, no. And there's too many inputs, too many influences to say that we do it only this way or that way. You can't really assimilate if you keep all of your traditions. You have to make some kind of compromise. And
so must be exciting for your son as well, because he gets to different approach.
Maybe, but I think it's also because he's almost 9. It must also be conflicting in many ways. Generally, we're accepted here. We're not categorized negatively. We give back by our work. We help people in the community, in the country. I don't think I said, but we're actually not limited to Mladá Boleslav. We work everywhere. We're in North Bohemia, South Bohemia, in Slovakia. We're really everywhere. We're tolerated. I speak Czech to potential clients. I do all of the business in Czech if I don't know that they speak English already. I coordinate all of the courses in Czech too. I don't really drink, but I can still enjoy restaurant and pop culture at the same time. I think it's also a little bit confusing for him.
Yeah.
You grew up and
I think once you get to the self-aware age and you start asking and seeing how other people do it, and you realize, wait a minute, why is mine this way when everyone else is that way? That's when you start questioning. At least that was the case in my case, right?
Yeah, but I think that's going to be in the teenage years. This is the same for any immigrant family, to be honest, even mixed race, because I know from the UK that you might struggle with your cultural identity a little bit. Where is my place? I'm not this, I'm not that. In my case, I'm not English, I'm not Georgian, I'm not Czech, but I live here. And where are my people, or where is my group? Humans are herd animals. We like to be in groups. This is why in politics they talk about immigration as a hot topic, because these people are not in our group. Yes, it's called in-group bias in psychology. You get that feeling a little bit when you're a foreigner living in another country. But then I personally don't think about the nationality of my clients, if that makes sense. I live here, but all my friends, this is just Honza, this is Tomáš, this is not Český Tomáš, Slovak or Slovenský Honza or Janko. It's just this person, and their passport is irrelevant, to be honest, or their nationality. It's just seeing the forest for trees. Yeah. Again, also with business, so you have to take each person as an individual. I'm not a big nationalist, I don't like nationalism because I was only born in England by coincidence. There's no input from my side. I
There was
did
no choice, yes.
exactly. So it's just, that's what it is. I can try to fight it or support it, but in reality, it's just what it is. I wasn't active in making that decision. I didn't do anything to further the glory of the British nation, why am I proud? It's just me. Will, or William, who was born in the UK, lives in Czech Republic and does business in it. It's just me in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a good definition of who we have with the podcast today. Well, thank you so much for your time today, for answering all the questions. We definitely had a deep conversation. Probably one of the longest podcasts we've recorded so far, but there's definitely depth to it, which makes it authentic. Thank you very much to our audience. Make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And Will's business will be putting in the description. Have a look, reach out if you got any questions. Enjoy your day. Thank you, Will, and take care of yourself.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.